Jai Radha Madhava Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari Yasodanandana Brada Janaranjana Yasodanandana Brada Janaranjana Yamuna Tirha Vanacharya Yamuna Tirha Vanacharya Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari Yasodanandana Brada Janaranjana Yasodanandana Brada Janaranjana Yamuna Tirha Vanacharya Yamuna Tirha Vanacharya Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari Yasodanandana Brada Janaranjana Yasodanandana Brada Janaranjana Yamuna Tirha Vanacharya Yamuna Tirha Vanacharya Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Brahmadakacharya Asadhara Sadushi Shriman His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hariva Slava Zabrani Bhaktam Slava Shri Guru Shri Garangi Om Agyana Timanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Visakan Svitam Scha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchina Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Dhruvyascha Kripa Sindhuvyavacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitinanda Shadvaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Divinity Divine Service, Text 31. Taya vilasitesh yeshu guneshu gunavaniva Antak pravishta abhati Vijnanena vijambitaha Taya vilashitesh viteshveshu Guneshu gunavana iva Antak pravishta abhati Vijnanena vijambitaha Avyavitaisheshu Guneshu gunavaniva Antak pravishta abhati Vijnanena vijambitaha Taya vilaviteshveshu Yeshu gunavaniva Antak pravishta abhati Vijnanena vijambitaha Taya vilaviteshveshu Guneshu gunavaniva Antak pravishta bhati Vijnanena vijambitaha. Ladies. Vitaya vilavita sheshu Guneshu gunavaniva Antak pravishta bhati Vijnanena vijambitaha. Taya, by them, vilashiteshu Although in the function, Eshu, these, Guneshu, the modes of material nature, Gunavan, affected by the modes, Eva, as if, Antaha, within, Pravishtaha, entered into, Abhati, appears to be, Vijnanena, by transcendental consciousness, Vijambitaha, fully enlightened. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. After creating the material substance, the Lord Vasudeva expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he is always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. Please repeat. After creating the material substance, the Lord Vasudeva expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he is always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. Purport. The living entities are separated parts and parcels of the Lord, and the conditioned living entities are unfit for the spiritual kingdom, are strewn within the material world to enjoy matter to the fullest extent. As Paramatma, an eternal friend of the living entities, the Lord, by one of his plenary portions, accompanies the living entities to guide them in their material enjoyment and become witness to all activities. While the living entities enjoy the material conditions, the Lord maintains his transcendental position without being affected by the material atmosphere. In the Vedic literatures, Shruti, it is said that there are two birds in one tree. One of them is eating the fruits of the tree while the other is witnessing the actions. The witness is the Lord and the fruit eater is the living entity. The fruit eater, living entity, has forgotten his real identity, is overwhelmed in the fruitive activities of the material conditions. But the Lord Paramatma is always full in transcendental knowledge. That is the difference between the super soul and the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul, living entity, is controlled by the laws of nature, while the Paramatma, the super soul, is the controller of material energy. Taya vilashite shveshu guneshu gunavaniva antak pravishtak abhati vijnanena vijambitaha. After creating the material substance, the Lord Vasudeva expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he is always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Bhaskyatyade Satarane. Here Krishna is explaining about his expansion as Paramatma. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks different incarnations of Krishna speak through Krishna the Bhagavad Gita. And one of them is Paramatma. And there Paramatma, Krishna says, Savasya chaham ridhi sanavishto matak smritira jnanam aponam cha Vedaisha savaraham eva vedyo Vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. That I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known, I'm to be known. Indeed, I'm the compiler of Vedanta, and I know the Vedas as they actually are. In other words, as we can understand our eternality by hearing Krishna's explanation, how the body is changing, but we ourselves are not changing. Therefore, we can understand that we're conscious, eternal beings, and the body that we're in is an unconscious, temporary manifestation of Krishna's external energies. So similarly, we can understand the presence of Paramatma in everyone's heart, and the fact that he's the form direction, he's giving everyone direction. He is guiding everyone. As Krishna says, Tam eva sharanam gacha, or Ishvara sarvabhutanam, Rideshe arjuna tishtati, Brahmayan sarvabhutani, yantra rudani maya. That I'm situated in everyone's heart. The Supreme Lord is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Tam eva sharanam gacha, sarva bhavena varata, tat prasadam param shantim, stanam prapsi shasvatam. Surrender unto him in all respects, O Arjuna, because by his grace one can obtain eternal peace in the transcendental abode. So Krishna is trying to guide us within our heart in order so we can obtain peace and the eternal abode. But it's a question of listening to him either within the heart or externally as Bhagavad Gita and his representatives. In any case, the message is the same. If the scriptures certainly are a representative of Krishna, and if one is going to become a representative of Krishna, he has to repeat the same thing that the scriptures say, but according to time, place, and circumstance. So Krishna explains, or Prabhupada explains in the purport in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that certainly there is different energies here: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. And that right now we're conditioned by those energies because we can't see or perceive or do anything without the help of those energies. And these energies are nothing but the combination and permutation of the different varieties of material energy. When we say earth, we mean solid matter. When we say water, we mean energy that makes things stick together. We say fire, we mean the energy of transformation. We say air, with the energy that moves things in the world. Ether, that allows space for things to fit into. And then there's the mind, thinking, feeling, willing, intelligence to give us direction. So these energies we can't see and we can't move without the help of these energies. Therefore we undoubtedly feel ourselves conditioned by our material circumstances. But the actual soul wants freedom. It doesn't want to become restricted by these gross and subtle elements. But still, there is some idea that by a combination of material elements, that the soul has come about. But the soul is quite different from the material elements. Material elements never complain about their circumstances, but the soul does. So trust no future, however bright, that the idle talk about matter combining into spirit is just so much speculation. Nowhere have we ever seen matter combining into spirit. Instead, what we find is that within the spirit is being guided by superior intelligence. Just like a father may guide his son, or a teacher may guide their student, so that guide within everyone's heart is Paramatma. He's giving all living entities in all the species of life intelligence in order to fulfill their desires. Now when we get a material body, along with the body, we get certain types of desires. That's why we got the body. It wasn't by accident. We had certain desires in the past, certain activities and desires in the past, and therefore we received this present body. And the present body has certain desires, and therefore the Supersoul is guiding us in order to fulfill those desires, whether they be spiritual or material. We desire, and then Krishna gives us the intelligence how to fulfill that desire if we want to. We've got in the Bhagavad Gita certain desires that came from the past we shouldn't be concerned with, or we should try to become detached from. But we can't become detached from any desire unless we have a superior desire to become attached to. Just like those in the mode of ignorance who are suffering due to intoxication, illicit sex, meat eating, and mental speculation, they're advised to follow a process, either spiritual or material, or to come to a higher state of consciousness. So if one is in ignorance, passion is higher than ignorance. So one may be encouraged to do some activities which will take the mind away from lower nature and give one some higher nature, even in the mode of passion. Or one is in the mode of passion, one is advised to develop desires in the mode of goodness. Instead of becoming overly anxiety about the results of one's work, that one should become aloof and meditate. For instance, even the common people, they want to meditate and become detached from their materialistic desires. Let them come, as Krishna says, flow through the mind without becoming disturbed by them, because one is situated in a higher state of consciousness. Therefore, Paramatma, whether for the materialist or for the spiritualist, he reminds us about our spiritual identity, and that one should not become attached to anything in the material energy, one should become attached to the spiritual energy. So, Krishna will remind us, if we take it seriously, then Krishna will encourage us. And if we don't, then we'll become attached to something material. Because nahi kaschit shenamam api jatu tishtat karma krit karyate yas karma sarva prakriti jar gunai. That all living entities of force act helplessly according to the three modes of material nature, and therefore no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. So if we don't act spiritually, we're going to act in the mode of goodness. If we don't act spiritually in the mode of goodness, we'll have to act in the mode of passion. If we don't act in those modes, any one of those, we'll have to act in the mode of ignorance. But activity we'll have to do. Therefore, Paramatma wants us to act transcendentally, but if we don't, then he'll also fulfill our material desires, although he'll probably encourage us to act more in goodness and in ignorance and passion. So Varnashram Dharma is meant to bring one from ignorance to goodness, to passion, to goodness and transcendental. So obviously Krishna prefers that we act in the higher level than in the lower level. Therefore he'll encourage us to try to go higher, at least, wherever we're on. So, Krishna as Paramatma, if we want knowledge, real knowledge, then he gives us that knowledge and helps us forget lower knowledge, lower desires. He'll help us forget what we've done in the past in the material energy and give us perspective, true perspective, on actually what to do now in order to come to a higher state of consciousness. So he gives us remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. He gives knowledge to the spiritualist, how to advance in spiritual life. He helps them forget one's past misdeeds in the material energy, and he gives knowledge, he gives remembrance of who we actually are and what actually is reality. And from the materialist, Krishna helps the materialist forget about him. And he helps us remember so many varieties of material enjoyment and gives knowledge, remembrance of how to enjoy the material energy, of all the good things that ever happened to us, so that we could try to duplicate them, and all the horrors that happened to us, so we can try to avoid them. But he'll never give, for those who are interested in material life, knowledge of how to advance spiritually, because they don't want that. Nor will Krishna give those in the mode of ignorance generally knowledge just by themselves of how to act in goodness, because that's not what they're interested in. But somehow or another, if they come in good association, they may get some opportunity to get some knowledge in the mode of goodness or transcendental, and therefore add that to their possibilities. But still, one who's heavily conditioned by ignorance generally won't take it very seriously, although it may be there, like Arjamil. He cultivated knowledge in the transcendental knowledge and knowledge in the mode of goodness as a Brahmana, and then it got covered over by ignorance. He was not interested in transcendental knowledge or the mode of goodness after many years of having children with a prostitute and engaging in many sinful activities. But when the opportunity was there, then he started to shout the name of his little son Narayan, and therefore some remembrance of his past came to him and saved him. So it was there, although it was not prominent. There was nothing to invoke it, because he had no good association, except by calling his son Narayan. That was his only good association. And then the Vishnu Dutas came and saved him from the Yamadutas. So a little knowledge in spiritual life never goes in vain, although it may become covered, it may not act for a long time if we don't have proper association. Still, Krishna is there, whatever we want. If we want to remember Krishna, he'll help us. If we want to remember our material life of material enjoyment, he'll also help us and give us knowledge how to get more of it, or avoid Krishna. He gives the spiritualists or the materialists knowledge of how to avoid Krishna consciousness also. Sometimes on Harinam people cover their ears because they don't want to hear. So Krishna tells them, you don't want to hear it, cover your ears. Or in class, sometimes we find devotees, if they don't want to hear what's being said, it interferes with their material desires, we find them falling asleep. It's the easiest way of avoiding it. You don't have to worry about hearing the philosophy because you're in Never Never Land. And then if some joke is told, they immediately wake up to find out what the joke is. Find out what they missed. We don't think we missed anything. Knowledge of Krishna, but the joke, that's important. So, Krishna explains himself in different ways in Bhagavad Gita as Paramatma, samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam paramaishvaram vinasyava vinashati ikpashyati sapashyati. One who sees the super soul equally present in all living entities and knows that neither the soul, nor the super soul is ever destroyed, he actually sees. In other words, what we're seeing is not the activities of the soul, we're seeing the manifestations of the soul's attachment, or his knowledge, or his desires, how they manifested itself. But the soul is always aloof, and it's transcendental. He's just asleep. He's just making wrong choices, that's all. Samam pachani sarvatra, sama ishvaram. One who sees the super soul present everywhere and equal does not degrade himself by his mind unless he approaches supreme destination. So our main problem is that we're thinking that there's something going on other than Krishna and Krishna's guidance in the material world. But actually Krishna is just equal to everyone. He's just fulfilling everyone's desires and arranging everything according to our past karma or according to our desires to advance spiritually. Just like if one has an intense desire to do anything, then Krishna will fulfill it. If one has an intense desire to go back to the spiritual world, Krishna will fulfill that. If one has an intense desire to do things that will bring one to hell, then Krishna will also give us all facility to go to hell. Whatever one wants, Krishna will fulfill. Compare it to just like a cloud is being pushed by the wind. So if the cloud wants to go this way, the wind will push it. And if the cloud wants to go the other way, the wind will push it also. But the cloud has no power to do anything without the pushing of the wind. But the cloud, if it's alive, sometimes clouds are alive, you can ask the wind to push me here or push me there, and the wind will do it. So the soul, not being part of the material nature or any control of the material nature, simply by its desire relies upon its friend, the supersoul, to fulfill those desires. Whether they're in the ignorance or in passion or goodness or transcendental, that depends upon the soul, and a lot of the soul's desires depends upon its association. So we're born into a certain body, we have a tendency for a certain association, and sometimes by good fortune we come in contact with a devotee, like Mugurari the hunter. He didn't have apparently very good association. His father was a hunter, he came from a whole disciple succession of hunters. And they weren't very nice hunters either, because they'd half kill the animals and watch them struggling in pain on the ground and enjoying their pain. Not exactly the type of person you'd like to meet on the street or in a dark alley. But Narada Muni came along by some fortune, good fortune on the part of Mugurari the hunter. And when Narada Muni saw the animals half flapping in pain, he came out to find out who was doing this, and all the animals ran away that Mugurari the hunter was chasing after. So he became very angry at Narada Muni. But by Narada Muni's influence, by his association, Mugurari the hunter couldn't display anger, but simply inquired from Narada Muni, "Why did you interfere with my hunting?" Narada Muni explained to the hunter that by half killing animals, he was inviting very bad karma, that these animals in the future would torture him. So Mugurari said, "Well, I learned this from my father, but maybe it's not a good idea." And Narada Muni was able to display to him in his consciousness the results of his activities. He became very much afraid, and therefore he willingly gave up his bow and his deer skins and became a disciple of Narada Muni. So obviously we're not in such a bad position as Mugurari the hunter, but it doesn't mean that we don't have some challenges to face ourselves in the material world. Mugurari the hunter was killing the animals, so we may think, well, we had other people kill animals for us, so we're not so bad. But we get the reaction as Mugurari the hunter got animals, a reaction. The only hope is we've come in contact with a devotee, and therefore to follow his instructions. Now that Mugurari the hunter, he broke his bow, he gave away his skins that he had gotten, and he began to chant Hare Krišna and live a very simple life. Now, we have some fortune. We didn't have a bow to break, but we had other things to give away. But we may not be as surrendered as Mugurari the hunter was immediately. Mugurari he lived in a simpler situation, therefore there wasn't really so much to give up. But we have a few other things that we're attached to. And although it may not send us to hell, but it may send us into another body again. So therefore we have to take the process of devotional service as seriously as possible. And then these other things that we're utilizing in Krishna's service, then Krishna will remind us that it's his, it's not ours, if we use it in Krishna's service. The blessing is that we remember what we have is Krishna's and then utilize it in devotional service. Not that we utilize things in devotional service and then Krishna just bestows upon us unlimited material opulence. That's not the blessings that we're looking for. The blessing is realize whatever we're doing on behalf of Krishna, and whatever we're utilizing in Krishna's service belongs to Krishna, and therefore we're no longer going to be attached, even if we had great opulence. And if we don't realize that, then we're not in the best position, at least. Then we may get in the future, come back and get the results, the fruit results of our work, but that may just further separate us from Krishna, which is not very auspicious. Therefore, Queen Kunti said, Janmaishvarya Shruta Shrivira Edamanak Madak Puman Navahat Devidatum Vai Tvam Akinchana Gochara. That those who are become proud of their, or not only proud, but those who are interested in developing higher material education, or just material education, and personal influence, personal beauty, personal opulence, that those who are interested in these things, they become proud. They think that these are my, Krishna, as Shukadeva Goswami, these are the things that will protect me from the material energy. And therefore, taking shelter of material nature, one gets covered, and one will not chant Hare Krishna with any kind of feeling, because we think, well, we have everything covered. What do I need Krishna for? Already safe and sound. Like they said, that, like a vaccine or something, safe and effective. That these things will make me safe and they'll effectively make me happy. But they don't. Instead, they cover oneself and they prevent us from chanting Hare Krishna with feeling, and therefore we become proud and we think that these opulences are mine, whatever they may be, rather than simply borrowed from Krishna in order to utilize in his service. And therefore, instead of taking shelter of Paramatma and inquire from him what to do and how to do it, we take shelter of materialists to tell us what to do and how to do it for our sense gratification. And therefore we should see others who are probably taking shelter of Krishna as our example and guides, and we should see those who are not taking shelter of Krishna, we should try to help them take shelter of Krishna to the best of our ability, so they avoid the unnecessary problems, the useless problems of taking shelter of material illusory promises that never are fulfilled by the material energy. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna. Because you said that everyone gets whatever he wants according to his desires. So
and what he deserves.
What he deserves. So how much should we strive to create an environment where people can make some spiritual progress, and how much should we just leave it up to Krishna, because he's going to do it anyway?
Well, we do leave it up to Krishna. That's why he has us create a spiritual environment. We're not the creators. He wants that. So we just agree to act as his instrument, because he wants that. Do you think Krishna enjoys watching people in the mode of ignorance? He wants us to go out and, hand out intoxication for free on the street to help create the mode of ignorance. So we can become an instrument. Krishna wants people to develop a spiritual atmosphere. That's one of the 5 powerful processes, creating a spiritual atmosphere. So he wants that. So all we can do is be an instrument for that. And then Krishna will, that's our own spiritual progress, agreeing to be at least an instrument for something that Krishna wants. And he wants that. Well, we shouldn't think, well, if I don't do it, it's not going to be done. We're not doing anything. We're simply agreeing to dovetail our desires with Krishna's desires. If not, we'll be forced to dovetail it with material energy. So either we help develop spiritual consciousness in the society, or we'll have to remain in material consciousness ourselves. We'll have to act in material consciousness. So that's our choice. Either be an instrument for Maya or an instrument for Krishna. But in any case, we're not the doer, we're simply the desirer. Because if we desire in the mode of ignorance, then we'll become an instrument for the mode of ignorance. We'll be able to manifest so many slums and Boweries and all the kinds of things like that. And if we become an instrument for the mode of transcendental, then we can try to help Krishna create a spiritual atmosphere. Anything else? Yes.
How to see Krishna in everyone's heart?
Well, first we have to see him in our heart. If we don't recognize that he's in our heart, then we won't know what to do in order to see him in everyone else's heart. So first we have to take shelter through Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, because that's how Paramatma is speaking to us most clearly right now, and follow their instructions. And then Krishna within our heart will remind us what those instructions are and remind us of how to do them. And as we follow, then Krishna will give us more and more experience, realization. He'll enlighten us. Everything will become revealed, what he's talking about. And then we'll be able to explain that to others. Well, not only explain it, we'll be able to see how others are also going through the same process, how Krishna is guiding them, either towards spiritual life or towards the darkest regions of existence, depends on their desires. Then we'll be able to see Krishna everywhere, how he's guiding all living entities. Anything else? Kuala Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande.